So I work for a company called Virta Health, and it is a metabolic disease reversal company, which is kind of a mouthful. But the goal is to help people get healthy through nutrition. And so it started out with type 2 diabetes and recognition that, so much of metabolic disease is created or exacerbated by inflammation and, blood sugar, and the lack of awareness of how nutrition impacts all of that is such a fundamental piece of it. And, working for a company, and the reason I made the jump was the idea that you can have an impact earlier and actually change, like reverse somebody's course.
Welcome to Becoming the GC, the podcast that dives deep into the journeys of general counsels and chief legal officers, uncovering the insights and strategies that help define their success. Hosted by Joe Schul, founder of Inside Counsel Academy. We share real-life stories and practical advice from successful GCs, guiding you on your journey to the top. Tune in and discover what it takes to become the exceptional legal leader your organization needs.
Today, I talk with Jamie Anderson, Chief Legal Officer at Virta Health, where she leads legal strategy for a high-growth startup on a mission to reverse metabolic disease in 1 billion people. Jamie has spent nearly 2 decades in healthcare law with prior roles at DaVita Kidney Care and Akin Gump, and she brings a deeply personal connection to her work as someone who has lived with type 1 diabetes her entire adult life. A graduate of American University, Washington College of Law, and George Washington University, Jamie now lives in Colorado with her family, including 2 teenagers and a 90-pound Bernedoodle. In this conversation, we explore her nonlinear path into the GC seat, how she's building and scaling a modern in-house team with AI and automation, and what it looks like to craft a purpose-driven legal career in a rapidly changing healthcare landscape. Without further ado, I bring you Jamie Anderson. So, Jamie, great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe. It's great to see you as well.
I can't wait to hear about your journey, and I'm going to take you back in time to the start of that. But I always like to ask the question first: what do you like most about being a lawyer in 2026?
Oof. In 2026, I'll talk about like my personal experience, but I do think there's a lot of looking with a skeptical eye towards what's coming and how things are going to change. And so preparation for that is a big part of it. But what do I love about what I'm doing right now is the team that I built and the company that I work for. I just think that when you get to work for a company where you believe the mission is like, your interests and the company's interests and your customers' interests are all aligned, it's kind of like the best place to be. So getting to advise on risk and business and build teams and be a mentor, like all of those things at once.
Tell us about your company.
Yeah. So I work for a company called Virta Health, and it is a, metabolic disease reversal company, which is kind of a mouthful. But the goal is to help people get healthy through nutrition. And so it started out with type 2 diabetes and recognition that, so much of metabolic disease is created or exacerbated by inflammation and, blood sugar, and the lack of awareness of how nutrition impacts all of that is such a fundamental piece of it. And so, we know each other basically from my work with DaVita. And, I'm a type 1 diabetic and have this, kind of place in my heart of just what can we do to help people and change care and make sure that people are doing what they can to impact their own stories. And so working at DaVita is an amazing place because you can impact so much about someone's end of life. But when somebody gets to that ESRD place, you're kind of too late to really change the trajectory of it, but you can improve their life and make sure they're getting treated well, which is what DaVita is about. But, working for a company, and the reason I made the jump was the idea that you can have an impact earlier and actually change, like reverse somebody's course. A lot of people are diagnosed with diabetes, especially type 2, and they are handed an insulin pen and like, this is your
Right.
life and you're just going to have more medications, but it doesn't have to be the case.
And there's right in the conversation is like, that's just the way it is. There's no way around it, but it's good. There's medications, but you're going upstream, you're going way upstream.
Yeah.
And with, nutrition, like from, I read a lot, and like you can reverse it with solely through nutrition, right? But
Absolutely can.
tell me more about that, but that's hard. Like not a lot of people do it that way.
It's hard. It is hard. But it's amazing. I've been here for, I don't know, almost 5 years, and every Monday we have an all hands meeting with the whole company on Zoom, and we get a member or patient who wants to show up every single Monday, different patient in those 5 years who has had their life changed so much by their experience with Virta that they're willing to come and talk to, 1,000 little squares on Zoom and explain how they had no idea until, they did some research and came across us, or their employer told them, or their health plan, or whoever it was. And so it was never explained to them that this was an option that you could, because a lot of it is in, insulin resistance. And that kind of starts with, carb intolerance. And there's a way to change the way your body metabolizes food and takes in, food as information. And it really is amazing. And it's like the idea, especially as someone who has an endocrinologist, and type 1 unfortunately can't be reversed, but I've changed the way I eat to this kind of nutritional method, and the numbers of units of insulin and like my health has improved drastically. And so it's like, there's a lot of opportunity there.
That's awesome. How does the business provide the service? Are there locations people go to, or?
Yeah, so either your employer can offer it as a benefit, or your health plan can. And so, we'll reach out to members when we engage a new employer or a new health plan, and, they'll provide us with members who qualify. And it's, either type 2 diabetes or obesity or weight loss. And obviously now we're kind of expanding the things that we can help with. And so then they'll, engage and enroll. We'll do kind of a full, medical review to make sure it's safe. They'll be given a doctor or a nurse practitioner and a coach and lots of resources, and have this, one of the advantages of telemed is it's not like you wait every 3 months to see your endocrinologist, but you can kind of send a message and have a response almost in real time.
Wow, that is great. And so in some ways you've been training for this job your whole life, right? Like something that you were born with, I presume. And
no.
No. Okay, interesting.
I was diagnosed as an adult. Yeah. And just like a random insurance blood test, which is totally crazy. I mean, most type 1, develop it much younger, but there's a subset that do older.
Great. Well, let's go back in time. So when did you first think about pursuing a career in law?
So I didn't. There were no lawyers in my family. There was really
you did?
I mean, I wasn't planning on it. I was in love with politics and policy and wanted that to be my life. I moved.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in
local.
Yes, I grew up in South Florida, and I had this amazing AP, government teacher, and it was kind of around the time of like Newt Gingrich and it was just like all this interesting stuff happening in Washington that opened my eyes towards it. So I decided I was going to go to DC for college. So I got like full scholarship to University of Florida, and my parents were like, so you're not going to go there?
Which is a great school. Yeah.
Great school. Yeah. Totally. And no, instead like that, all of their hopes of free education. Instead, I went to GW, which is like one of the more expensive Totally.
Also a great school.
Also a great
Very expensive.
school, totally. But it gave me the opportunity I got to intern at the White House on Capitol Hill. I worked, with Nina Totenberg at the Supreme Court and NPR. I mean,
Oh,
all these
wow.
opportunities
Yeah.
and in Senator Ted Kennedy's help office. And so I got to kind of see how all this worked. And I was like, okay, I'm going to work on Capitol Hill. I'm going to work on campaigns. So right after college, I started working on campaigns. And then I had more access to kind of what was happening on Capitol Hill. And then I realized the most successful people or the people that were doing the coolest work were lawyers, like the legislative
Mhm.
directors and the people. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll go to law school, but I'm certainly not going to practice law. So I went to law school, and then that thing happens where, you take on a lot of loans and you're like, okay, I'll work at a law firm for a few years. And my dad had been in like healthcare business through his whole career. So I got a lot of insight into that and just kind of what that was. And so I decided I would work for a few years to pay off loans at Akin Gump.
Mhm.
I got a job in their healthcare practice, and I was like, okay, regulatory, like learn a lot more about this, make myself even more marketable and valuable when I go back to work on Capitol Hill. Never in a million years want to do like litigation or anything like that. So I walk in basically the first day, one of our biggest healthcare hospital clients gets handed a CID, an investigative demand from the government. And so I get on a train on the Amtrak to New Jersey and basically move there to like work in this hospital doing document review, helping plan the
Right
defense.
off the bat.
Best way, I don't think people realize this, and I would tell
Yeah.
any young lawyer the best way to learn any area of law is to be steeped in either like a transaction or, where you're doing diligence, or litigation where you're doing diligence, because you have to like dig deep and find everything and kind of figure out like what happened and what decisions were made and what kind of meetings were had. And it was a great learning experience for sure. I remember,
It's like a puzzle,
yeah,
right? I mean,
exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
in at some point when you're senior, you want to be able to see the whole picture, but like the best way to see the whole picture is to have pieced it together as a junior lawyer. Never thought of that before, but when you said it, it made me think that you've got to organize the information that is seemingly random and disconnected into something that looks like a picture.
Yeah, for sure. So it was a great experience. The healthcare practice was growing at Akin Gump at that point. I met like some of my best friends who are also young associates. You spend almost every night at the
Right.
law firm. You all
Dinners
eat
and
dinner
yeah.
together. You're
Right.
like stuck in a conference room working on stuff. And if you're lucky, you have great partner mentors. And I did have, who is still in my life now and actually a really good friend. But somebody who just focused on how important client service was and just helped to understand like the hierarchy of, working in a company, because I spent so much time at the hospital, and then I was doing after that like kind of compliance reviews for different healthcare systems. So similarly, I would just go and spend a lot of time with the clients, and I think I didn't realize that it was occurring to me at the time that I would be like really good in-house and
Yeah.
just working in that, like being a part of the team and the customer. Because you go in as outside counsel and you're seeing a piece of it and you're helping with a part of it, but you're not exactly sure what they're going to do with it or how it ends. And so you try to form relationships with your clients so that you're just the person that they pick up the phone and call, and you really understand the
Right.
context a lot more, which I think as outside counsel, one of the hardest things is not having that context. So if you don't invest in those dinners with clients, or, figuring out what's important to your clients so that they tell you more of what's going on, you're a lot less effective. So I spend so much time with clients and customers learning like what good looks like, what a real good compliance program looks like, what effective leaders of those in-house teams look like, and really learning a lot from, the head of the practice at Akin Gump, of just who ultimately actually left to be a general counsel at a big client
Oh, is
eventually
that right?
after I had already left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're working with inside teams and but you're acting as an outside lawyer, but you like building those relationships and you're thinking maybe this is something I'd like to be on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I think another client who actually brought into the firm similarly had a situation where they were not anticipating it, but got hit with a CID. And because I brought the client in, I got to like build the team to respond to it and really work on the strategy and, creating the plan and overseeing. And I realized I think I'm better at like kind of leading and organizing than I am at just being an individual contributor.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I don't know that staying in a law firm is where I'm going to get what I want or kind of accomplish what I want. And in that time, I had two babies. So at that point, and law firms are pretty generous. I was super lucky with leave. And so I think my kids at that point were, I don't know, turning 2 and turning 4. And that's a hard time to be at a law firm
Yeah.
where, most of what you're needed to do is, kind of hanging out late and being available at
Right.
any time. And so trying to protect, I kind of made a point of leaving by 6 o'clock every day, no matter what, getting on the metro, going home, dinner, bath, bedtime, and then almost immediately back online to, work for several more hours to make sure I was,
Right.
holding up my end of the bargain on that, which was hard.
It's a
It really
lot.
was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, I think it's time. And I started looking, and DaVita was hiring. It was kind of fortuitous. They had just done that like healthcare partners, kind of merger-ish, and they were building a lot of internal legal, and it just the stars aligned, and I moved to Colorado and joined the team.
Okay. And so, because like, here's a question that popped in my head, and maybe some lawyers who are at law firms, if they're listening, are like, you're at Akin Gump, big firm, and you bring in a client that has CID. You were an associate?
hmm
How'd you do that?
It was a connection, like just a family connection.
But
That I
somebody, yeah,
just, yeah,
somebody you knew
but
and
they
they trusted
trusted,
you, and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
hmm
That's awesome.
Which was great. And it was
Yeah.
cool. It didn't work out perfectly, because, there's big firms are great for big companies, and for smaller clients, it's not necessarily an ideal situation, especially when you have a need like that, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously the bills pile up and pile up and pile up. And
Right.
so it was a good experience all around.
Yeah.
But having the opportunity, it also changes the way you're perceived as an associate at a law firm if you
For
can,
sure. For
um,
sure. Just, yeah, having that, entrepreneurial spirit and getting to lead a project like that. So that's pretty cool. So okay, so then but Colorado, you're from Florida, you've lived in DC. This is a new adventure.
yes,
Okay.
it
Tell
was.
us
And
about that.
my family,
You
I
have
have
kids and
two
yeah.
sisters, and my mom, were already out in Colorado. And
Oh,
again, the
nice.
2 and 4-year-old, the idea of family reinforcements to help with
Oh
that,
my
like
gosh.
super
That makes
enticing.
all the difference. Yeah. Okay, so they were in Colorado. And so then how did you become aware of the position?
I started looking. God, that's a great
Were
question.
they a
I don't know.
client? Were they a client? I mean,
No, they were not a
no,
client.
okay.
And it's
Yeah.
possible, like American Health Lawyers Association, it's
Yeah.
possible they put it out. I didn't have a recruiter. I wasn't like looking that aggressively, but somehow I found out about it. I was also looking in DC because we weren't sure what we wanted to do. And I flew out to to Colorado, met with two companies. Um, and something was going well because they both made offers. And so I just decided between the two, DaVita was like the bigger, more sure thing. And I thought it
Yeah.
would give me a lot more well-rounded opportunity. And so I took it.
Yeah, great. And, I mean, in addition to it's an incredible training ground for lawyers, many of whom we've had, on the
Mhm.
show. And they, 2012-ish when, they have a beautiful headquarters, right? Right there in downtown Denver. It's like
Yes.
it's pretty attractive.
Yeah, it was great. And it was similar. The one thing I will say is the time expectations, obligations, all of that stuff were not different. In fact, I probably worked, harder at the beginning. You had David Shapiro on the program recently. He's the one that hired me, and I remember sitting in a room with him where he said, just a lot of people go in house because they think it's going to be easier. That's not what you're going to get here. Like you're going to learn a lot, but this is not a 9 to 5 job. So I just
Was
want to
this
make
during
sure.
the interview or after you started?
This is during the interview. I don't
Oh,
know if he
good.
was trying to scare me, maybe. But I was intrigued. And so
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not here for a 9 to 5. Like I want to build what you guys are building and
Awesome.
learn and have
Yeah.
these opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is, what I would tell people when I would recruit them is, it's also like you're going to have a lot more responsibility, right? Because when, like, I don't know, just being on the inside, like the buck stops with you.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not like, you have an opportunity sometimes to phone a friend, but definitely meaning outside counsel.
Oh, for
But
sure,
but
they're going
but
to
that's
help, but they're
not like
helping you.
they're helping
Right.
you, and you need to articulate what the need is, what the question is. You're the one that needs to explain
Yeah.
it to the client or to leadership in that case, which is a lot of the time. And what we were building, like we were so small at that point, the internal legal team, that like I just raised my hand to do a whole bunch of things that I had no idea what I was doing. And so, like I didn't have much experience with dialysis. I certainly didn't have much experience with like surveys and, IJ, like things that would happen. And I just remember I would get a call and somebody would be like, hey, there's a, surveyor here, and they're threatening that they're going to give us an IJ, which is immediate jeopardy. Basically, they can close can you talk to them? And I'm like, okay, first tell me what IJ stands for. And then, and you just kind of figure it out and you
Yeah.
hope for the best.
Yeah.
And again, you phone a friend when you need to. But so much of, I think, working in house, especially in situations like that where it's fast moving, like you, of course, have the subject matter expertise, right? Like that's table stakes. You have to understand healthcare regulatory law and like where kind of like the big roadblocks and things that you never can do are. But the rest, you just use your gut and the expertise that you've gained and an understanding of what the risk tolerance of the company is and like what you're trying to accomplish, and you just try to find the best answer.
Your reference there took me back because, in healthcare, like you said, like at DaVita, the clinics are running, 6 days a week, multiple shifts, and serious stuff is happening, right? Like, and things happen, and they have to reach out. And I think somehow, like, my phone number was on a poster that, and so for years after I had left DaVita, I would still get calls in the middle of dinner or whatever, with
Yes,
somebody needing urgent help. Now I knew where to send them, but for a long time it was like you got to solve it, right? I or somebody on the team would have to solve it in real time.
for sure.
Yeah,
Sure, and that's
definitely.
fun and it's exciting, and no day there and here where I am too, like no day really. There's no 2 days that are the same, and
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
makes
And you
it
didn't have to worry, like, am I needed? Right. Like, or like,
correct.
yeah,
For sure, you're
definitely.
always needed. There's always
Right.
something to do.
There's always something to do. Exactly. So tell me, what caused you to want to move on?
It's a good question. I think when we say there's always something to do, it doesn't mean you're always kind of growing and learning. A lot of it is throughout those years. I think I was there for almost 9 years. It was
Mhm.
building a team and, bringing in the people to do a lot of the things. Like as we grew bigger, it wasn't like you just do all of the things. It's like now we have, a labor and employment team. And now we have a team that deals with, risk. And now we have a team that, deals with
Yeah.
government investigations. And so a lot of it, you end up then kind of in your niche, just dealing with the things that are right
Right.
there.
Yep.
And so that becomes a little bit less exciting and
Mhm.
fun, and it's still super important what you're doing, and you're putting the right people in the place, and you're training them, and you're being a leader, and you're cultivating talent and making sure that, people are doing what they need to be doing, and that the your internal clients are supported. But I think I kind of got a sense, and some of this was COVID, and the separation that we all felt a little bit by like not being in the office every day, and,
Mhm.
being a little bit removed. Um, and some of it, I think, was just the looking around at like where I could move up and how limited those opportunities were. And are you happy doing what you're doing, or do you want more? Do you want to try more? Or do you want to take a risk? Like at some point you're comfortable and you know what you're doing and it's not scary anymore. And that's a good thing.
Yep.
Sometimes it's fun to be scared and challenged, and, you grow from those things. So I sort of fortuitously met a few people that work at Virta, the company I'm at now.
Yep.
But, I went from huge law firm to huge company.
Right.
And so the like risk calibration that it takes to go join a startup was like not me at all. Like I was like, no way. Like I met these people and I was just like, it sounds like what you're doing is amazing. Good luck with that. And then we had a few more conversations. I met a few more people. They completed, I think, their Series E right before I started. So they were pretty well capitalized, and it seemed like it wasn't necessarily as risky, as like you would think of joining a startup, though it's still every day, at a startup is a risk, really. You never know what's going to happen. And so I was just convinced by the mission. I was convinced by the people that I met that were just super talented and so passionate about what this company was doing and what it could do, that I, and the opportunity to join and build again. I was going to be the first inside, lawyer that they were hiring. They had a lot of outside and a couple of, internal, like smaller roles, but
Yeah.
I'd be building the whole legal team. And so that seemed really exciting.
In
So
what ways, when you stepped into the role, were you challenged in ways you hadn't been previously?
all the ways, I mean, all the ways. I mean, I don't think I was, like I said, I'd kind of gotten comfortable, and I had put people on my team that were such rock stars, and, things would happen at DaVita that, I would know, like, if I don't know this, I have this like super talented person over here that knows this and this, like, we'd be able to gut check and figure stuff
Mhm.
out. And so going from that, which is like a team of like 30 something doing all these things, to going back to being not only the person that's leading the thing, but doing the thing. And there's no process. I mean, there was some process, but there wasn't a lot of process. There wasn't a lot of policies. There wasn't a lot of like, there was a lot to do. And so a lot of opportunity, a lot of really cool, interesting work, a lot way outside of my wheelhouse. Um, that again, that whole kind of gut check, find the right answer, find the best answer. Maybe it's not the right answer, and then you have to fix things, but the right answer with the information you have at the time. Um, so that was like terrifying, and also really cool and fun and rewarding and fulfilling. And there was a lot of appreciation for it at the company. Like when you work at a big company and you want to do something, it's like 6 meetings in 3 months, and, a committee. And I was like, hey, there's this thing. I don't know if you're aware, we're a healthcare company. Like we should have this thing.
Yeah.
And so they're like, great, go do that thing. And then
Nice.
that was it. And we
Yeah.
did it. And so
Yeah.
it's
That's
cool. And
great.
again, I got to build a team and hire great people. And I love that.
Right. Love that too. Are you guys in an in-person environment or
I
hybrid?
am today.
Yeah.
But we have two small offices, one in the Bay Area and one in Denver.
Okay.
And so we use them more like meeting spaces.
Yeah.
There's a few of us that have like actual offices, but it's mainly for like co-working and meeting and, strategizing and that stuff. So,
Yeah.
not a lot of in person, but then like, a lot of team meetings and offsites and leadership meetings and board meetings, and those things are in person.
Yeah. Did you know when, would you only have, well, yeah, let me ask that. Would you only have left DaVita for a GC job? Is that what you were looking for?
It's a good question. I don't think I wasn't looking for any job. Like I really
Right.
wasn't looking at all, but the idea of being GC was enticing because I think what
Okay.
I learned when I kind of managed the process, at Akin and then like kind of built the team, and grew the team at DaVita. I realized that I really like that and I love training and being a leader and like watching younger, lawyers kind of figure stuff out and being a mentor and then the idea of being the one that's responsible for all of it and also then being much more of a partner to the business, right? Like not you, I still provide legal guidance every single day for
Mhm.
sure. Still do a lot of that work, but I also get to be a sounding board and participate in strategic decisions and work with the exec team and think through problems that are not just legal
Yeah.
and it's great. It's like constantly learning new things and being exposed to new things and sharing, kind of the burden of those decisions, which is also interesting.
Right, right. What do you think about your personality or the way you practiced set you up most for being in the role that you're in now, being in that GC role?
Um, I think I just love learning new things and getting to do new things. And I think I love that more than I'm scared by it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I loved school. I loved law school. I would go to school forever. I spend a good part of my day trying to keep on time. I mean, things change so much in healthcare and, between regs changing. I mean, we're in all 50 states, so trying to keep on top of that, understanding what's happening
Right.
from the administration and policy. So I probably spend an hour or so a day, kind of reading and trying to stay on top of that stuff and constantly learning through CLEs and other things. And so I think it's that. I think
Yeah.
it's like the desire to not just be comfortable in the thing that I'm doing, but always being curious and asking questions and trying to figure out how to get involved in that other new exciting thing that's happening.
Yeah. No, I totally relate to that, because um I can see there are some pros to being like so deep in an area that you know exactly what to do. But I think I would get bored. Like, and that's with the GC job. You never get bored because it's constantly evolving. There's constantly new things,
For sure.
challenging you. And
Yeah.
so I love that you spend I think people should spend more time, reading and making sure they're staying on top of developments, not just the urgent thing that's, put in front of them. Things are changing so fast, right? With AI, in the, just I can't help but it turns into a big topic when I interview people now that it didn't a year ago.
Hmm.
Um, but is that something you've explored AI tools to help support and
Of course. I
anything
mean,
you found
I don't
particularly effective?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can be successful as a small in-house team without tools and automation. I mean, that's what we're learning, and that's my team is so sick of hearing me say, like, how do we automate that? Like, how do we create self-serve tools? How do we help
Yeah.
because the company has grown so much, it's more than doubled in size since I've been here, and the legal team certainly has not gotten anywhere close to that. And so
What's the size of your legal team? So what are we?
so we're five lawyers
Okay.
now, including me, who isn't necessarily doing as much of the day to day. And so it's absolutely essential. And it's like also amazing and terrifying at the same time of what's
Hmm.
happening. And you look at it through the prism of just like how fast it's changing, how fast it's growing. I think we all need to be harnessing that and like learning, like the idea that we can stop learning right now is just like, I'm trying to impress this upon my kids who I'm a little bit concerned about their generation and like what entry level jobs are going to look like.
Hmm.
But I think, my CEO says all the time, like AI isn't going to replace humans, but humans using AI absolutely will. And so if we're not all learning and embracing these tools and trying to figure out how they can help us be more efficient, how we can scale, more effectively, then
Yeah.
we're just going to get left behind. So one tool that we've employed is GCAI, and I
Yeah.
think you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
That's one that comes up very often with in-house lawyers,
Yeah.
in particular. I think I think it's a great tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're working through now on just, I mean, that's a tool that's a great resource for every one of the attorneys, right? To help give you a head start on drafting and like point you in the right direction for researching and, help a lot of what you would send to outside counsel. And this is why I'm concerned for my children. Like, if you didn't have time to like do research, you send something to outside counsel, like, hey, can you tell me what Tennessee says about, corporate practice of medicine or whatever it is? You can now do that so quickly. And of course you have to double check it and look at the
Right.
sources and all that stuff, but it helps everybody move faster.
Point you in the right direction. It gives you a huge head start. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
definitely. What other tools, like not AI or non-AI,
Yeah.
have you found?
Yeah, I
really
mean, we're
effective?
we're working on creating playbooks, right?
Mhm.
So to help automate and allow maybe, the lawyers create the playbooks on like the ideal provisions in all of our customer agreements, but then we have legal support folks that can help at least go through the first draft or some, NDAs and BAAs and things like that that aren't necessarily like these big negotiating exercises. And even in some cases, how can we have the business folks take care of some of those where like if somebody's willing to accept our terms of an NDA, here's where you find the template, here's the information that we need from you. How can you self-serve? And
Yeah.
so and then, there's other, there are internal tools that our other teams use to help with coding, to help even just on the member service side, like a lot of, support functions can easily be handled when there's like low hanging repetitive questions or asks, there's so much opportunity. And
What do you look forward to getting better at?
me personally or
Yeah,
with
I
AI?
mean, or for your department, or
Oh,
where are you
I
headed?
think we have a team of rock stars that are just focused on, GSD and answering the question and providing client service. And when you're a small team and you're taxed heavily, on your time and need to move fast, that's important. I think we all can and should. And one thing I emphasize a lot is it's really important that we're like embedded with our internal clients, that you're attending their meetings, that you're aware of what they're aware of so that you can be a better partner to them. And
Mm-hmm.
so whether that's me learning more, I'm one of the few that doesn't have an MBA on the exec team. And so trying to keep up and make sure that, I can be a part of the conversation and provide the right guidance. Same for the, members of my team, whether it's advising the product team or the clinical team, like, are you attending their meetings? Are you aware of all the initiatives that they're thinking of, what their goals are so that you can be a resource and not just like, hey, this thing went wrong, we need you to fix it, but like, can you help us think through how to do this the right way?
Yeah, for sure. That's great. You sound like a great coach, mentor to your team, and sort of bringing folks along that journey of being in a truly effective in-house counsel. You gotta build those relationships and figure out a way that they want to include you in everything.
For sure.
So, and it's one thing learning that for yourself, and then it's another imparting it to and empowering your team to do that.
For sure, especially when, they don't have a lot of extra time and they could be,
Sure. Yeah.
knocking out a contract in that time, or they could be sitting, on a call and helping them find value in that, I think is important.
Right. Totally. Totally. If you weren't a lawyer, what do you think you would be?
I think I would have got, found a way to suck it up and figure out how to be on Capitol Hill and, take that path of
Maybe we'd be voting for you.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so, though. Some more options in that area would be nice. But the behind the scenes, like that's where all the fun stuff happens. Negotiating drafts of legislation and figuring out how to get stuff passed and all that, where the, in the room where it happens, as
Right.
say in Hamilton.
What's some career advice you've received along the way that stuck with you?
Um, hmm. I think, when I was at the law firm and had two young kids, I think a number of people that were further along in that journey would constantly say, like, little kids, little problems, and nothing would infuriate me more, because when people have young kids and they're trying to work and do all those things, like minimizing and telling them that what they're experiencing is not very effective. And so, and now that I have big kids, I still don't agree with the guidance. Like, when you have young kids and you're trying to figure out how to be a parent, how to be a spouse, how to be a good employee, it's a crazy stressful time, especially when, we're in this world where you get mixed messages about like what you're supposed to be focusing on and what you're supposed to be doing and whether you can or can't have it all. And I think I had some, you know, everybody has FOMO, no matter which side you're on, of working, not working, and all of that stuff. And like, are you making the right decisions and are you doing the right things? And I think what I tell young moms now is, you're like, there's almost no days where you're a rock star mom, a rock star wife, and a rock star employee.
All in the
And so
same
it's
time,
almost
right?
impossible. And so
Yeah.
you do your best to triage, and some days you're going to be a kick-ass employee, some days you're going to be a kick-ass mom, and know that there's a lot of days, and like, hopefully it all comes out in the wash and you do your best.
That's an awesome answer. You have to. I'm going to put in a plug for my partner Carrie's podcast, Mothers-in-Law. I don't know if you haven't listened to that, tune in, and then you should be on her show to share that wisdom. It's exactly the conversations that are taking place over there. What it's like for working moms, at law firms and in-house, and all phases of the career presents different challenges that are unique. That
Sure.
women face uniquely. So wow, yeah, thanks for sharing that. What are you most looking forward to?
Oh man. Speaking of, I have a senior in high school who's going off to college
Oh,
this year,
congratulations. Yeah.
which is exciting and heartbreaking all at the same time. But I'm super excited for him. And he actually, notwithstanding the fact that his mother, who's a lawyer, and his father, who is a lawyer, have been trying to convince him otherwise, but he thinks he wants to go into law. So we'll see what happens there. But my kids are at this like super fun age where they're just actual people that are cool to hang out with, and they're super smart, and there's all this exciting stuff happening for them. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. And then whatever the next chapter is, right? There's lots of exciting stuff happening at my company. There's exciting stuff happening at home. It's just it's a fun time. And man, how all of this is going to change so quickly with AI is very top of mind.
Right on. Well, it's been such a pleasure reconnecting with you and hearing your story. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It was great.
Thanks for listening to my conversation with Jamie Anderson. Here are 3 quick takeaways from her journey. First, your career path doesn't have to be linear to be successful. Jamie went from a politics-obsessed college student in DC to big law at Akin Gump to an in-house role at DaVita, and then made the leap to a startup GC at Virta. Each pivot came from honestly reassessing what she wanted next: more ownership, more impact, more growth, not from following a preset script. Second, great in-house lawyers embed deeply with the business. Jamie stressed that you can't be effective if you only show up when something breaks. Sitting in on product, clinical, and business meetings, understanding goals and constraints, and building trust over time is what allows legal to be a true strategic partner instead of a last-minute fixer. And third, tools and teams, not heroics, are how small legal departments scale. At Virta, Jamie is leaning hard into playbooks, self-serve templates, and AI tools to handle repetitive work and research. That mindset, how do we automate this instead of how do I personally grind through this, is essential if you want to grow your impact without burning out. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. And I'd love to connect with you directly. Just search for me, Joseph Scholl, on LinkedIn and reach out. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Becoming the GC. Whether you're preparing for the GC role or looking to sharpen your skills as a sitting general counsel, we hope this episode offered valuable insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your colleagues and friends. Explore more resources and join our community at InsideCounselAcademy.com. Please tune in next time for more insights and inspiring stories from successful legal leaders.